Alex Marrero, proud Superintendent, Denver Public Schools, finishing up our third year in this administration. Everyone seems to think that my position is elected, but no, I'm a hired and hopefully not anytime soon fired employee. I often say it's like a triad, my role. So educator, politician, and business person. We have close to $1.5 billion that we're responsible for, public funds. So it's dancing in those angles of that triangle. I started my career in higher education, actually. So I was a financial aid counselor, advisor at Manhattan College. And how I became an educator, I think was the most important, the most impactful, tragic time in my life. When I was just getting into college, I lost my mother. My mother's from Dominican Republic. My father's a refugee from Cuba, and he was in and out of my life, mostly out. My brother, older, in the military, there I was by myself in the hoods of the Bronx, if you will. And then mom passes, and I'm looking to, there's no one around, no family, so public assistance, whether it's Section 8, whether it's disability, whether it's welfare, and all those doors were shut in my face as a youngster. Right? The only thing that was an olive branch was the professors at Fordham University, where I was a student. They said, no, we can't afford to lose you. And loaded me up with loans, which was the only way that they can manage at the time, so grateful for that. But the only public entity that supported me during the most heart-wrenching time in my life was education. So I started in higher ed, then went into K-12, worked my way all the way up to principal, which is the most rewarding job. This is such a large organization that the demands are ever persistent, right? And perpetual if you allow it to be. So you have to really come out of the routine to see the impact and also to be informed. So I'm intentional in that regard. Aside from visiting schools, we've opened up some community hubs. Our community hubs initiative was me trying to eradicate the disparity that exists outside of bell-to-bell instruction. As educators, we do our best to make sure that when you're in the school building, you're safe, secure, and that we have the best opportunity to learn. But that's not enough in present day, right? To lead an educational system, you have to also come to terms with the realities of what happens or what doesn't happen outside of school. This initiative happened before the influx of new-to-country students. But the ones who are benefiting the most are our new-to-country families. So when we see, when I visit our community hubs, I see not only the food insecurity being addressed, so we have true bodegas in our community hubs, not just food banks, not to knock food banks, but what we have is, what do you want? A bonding experience. What do you want? You want pasta? Okay, here are the ingredients, here are the instructions, let's turn it into an activity for the family. That's much different than here's your can. We have some basic needs, whether it's clothing, winter clothes, shoes, book bags, have at it. Here's what we have for you all. Now we can build home libraries because we have book vending machines, right? In all languages, all levels, right? So all we need is access, which we've provided. We have 6, hopefully we can continue to expand. So that's the best example of how I've seen how we have supported our new-to-country students. The other way that I've seen it is some heart-wrenching letters that have been provided to me by our principals. And when I say heart-wrenching, that's not an understatement. It's a 4-page letter that I carry around with me. One of our young scholars, elementary, young lady who saw death, rape, and just horror in a 9-month walk. So a trek from Venezuela through Central America, through Mexico, barely, to the Southwest to settle into our system. So if that's not a sign that we have to do better for all, but make sure that folks feel safe, secure, and call this home, then I don't know what else is a sign. We convened all superintendents, tally, if you will, of all new-to-country students that we have all received since the magic October count, when we receive our funding. In our case, close to 3,000 students total, right? Significant amount of money. But in smaller districts, a handful of students are significant when you don't have the luxuries of being so large, and we can just provide some more resources in different ways. So when we compiled all these new to country students, then we were the ones who started the initiative and lobbying and respectfully saying to the state and Governor Polis, here's what we're doing, highlighting the great work out of Valdez, out of McMean, out of Placebridge. So it's not saying that we're failing these students, we're doing incredible, but it comes at a cost, right? It comes at a cost in emotional, physical. And the funding formula says that we're supposed to get some more. So through our advocacy, we were able to get some funding for not just Denver Public Schools, all districts across the state. Hopefully we can continue to use our leverage for a greater good. And that's an incredible example. And we're continuing. Most recently, we leveraged a little bit of our muscle when it comes to the School Finance Act. That's, in the eyes of some can be controversial. To me, it's crystal clear. For districts who are serving at-risk students, and however we want to define at-risk, the way we see it is new to country students, English language learners, students with special needs, students living in poverty. The research is crystal clear that the lift is much more significant when you're serving those students. But yet historically here in Colorado, we haven't been funding our schools that have at-risk populations. Instead, we've been looking at property values. So that's another way that we leverage, and hopefully to those educators who, again, are having the greater lift, and at the same time we have an accountability measure that is merciless in certain cases. It's just an unfair game that we're playing when it comes to public education. We're going to continue doing what's right for our students, without a doubt. But if we can also influence or change policy and create an equitable funding system, and even when it comes to an evaluation system, then that's a huge victory, not just for DPS, for the entire state. Life circumstances forced me to take the bull by the horns, or else it was survival of the fittest, right? And ultimately education saved my life. So when it comes to our new to country and our migrant students, who's going to advocate for them? Because when I was in that position, the public system did not. This is where education is the saving grace, right? Keeping the politics and the polarizing positions out of it. We can get into the whole shelter, housing, access, work authorization. I know in certain cases that's seen as incredibly controversial. But something that's foundational and fundamental as a right is free and appropriate education. Our little scholar who shared in writing a beautifully written in Spanish letter of the horror that she saw. So how can I not be the person to make sure that this is her sanctuary? I have to. If not me, who?